want to get well? I mean, that sounds like the easiest question in the world. I mean, who doesn't want to be well? Who doesn't want to be healed? But Jesus walks into a courtyard full of sick people, and he looks at a man who's been paralyzed for about 38 years, and he asks him that question. Not, what do you need? Not, how can I help you? Not even, do you believe? He asks him, do you want to get well? And the man's answer tells you everything why Jesus asked the way that he did. So Jesus is back in Jerusalem. He's there for another Jewish festival. And John doesn't name which one. He's at the sheep gate, which is the northern entrance into the city, which is near the temple. The sheep for the temple sacrifice came in through this gate, hence the name Sheep Gate. And Bethesda means house of mercy or flowing water. And the belief is that an angel would come at certain times and they would stir up the water, get it moving, and the first person that got into the pool after the stirring would be healed. Archaeology has proved that this pool does exist, and it is where and how John describes it. So near the sheep gate in Jerusalem, there was a pool. There were 5 colonnades. There were 5 colonnades that surrounded it. It's a shaded area where sick people would gather. That's where the lame, the blind, and the paralyzed were at. And they were all waiting for the same thing. Every so often, the water would get stirred up, and they would try to be the first one in to be healed. And so they waited day after day, hoping to be fast enough to be the first, or to be close enough, or lucky enough to be healed. And among those folks was a man who had been paralyzed for 38 years. So Jesus comes to this pool and he sees that man. And John tells us something that's very important. He tells us that Jesus knew that that man had been there for a long time. And so he walks over to him and he asks him, do you want to be well? And the man doesn't say yes. Instead, he says, I have no one to help me to get in the pool. So when it's stirred with no one to help me, I'll never make it. There's always someone, while I'm trying that gets there ahead of me because I don't have anyone to help me get in the pool. So it's not an answer to Jesus' question. It's an explanation as to why he can't get better. It's a description of everything working against this man. And it could be that this speech had been practiced, that it had been used maybe as an excuse many times. And it could be that that's the excuse that he told himself to make peace with the fact that he was not getting well. I mean, 38 years is a long time, and it's long enough to stop believing that things can change. So Jesus doesn't argue with him. He doesn't point out that he actually didn't answer him. He just says, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. And immediately, the man was healed. He picked up his mat, and he walked. But one problem, it was the Sabbath. And the Jewish leaders see this man carrying his mat through the city, and they tell him flatly, it's the Sabbath. You can't carry that because carrying your mat is work. And so the man says, the man who healed me told me to pick it up and walk. And so they ask, well, who told you that? The man doesn't know, and Jesus had slipped away in the crowd, so he's not there. So later, Jesus finds him in the temple, and he says to the man, you're well now. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. And so the man goes back to the religious leaders and tells them that it was Jesus who healed him. So I think there's 3 things to look at today. First, do you want to get well? I mean, Jesus asks it, and the man just lists off all the obstacles to getting well. But there's something painfully human about that response. When someone asks you if you want things to be different, and you explain why they can't be, and you describe why the system keeps you stuck, and you name all the people that get there before you. I mean, 38 years by that pool has taught that man one thing very thoroughly. The water gets stirred, someone else gets in, and he doesn't get healed. That's just how it is. And when those things happen to us time and time again, it just becomes something that we give up hope on. And what Jesus was asking was if this man had any hope left. Jesus was asking, really, have you given up hope? I mean, sometimes our identity gets so wrapped up in being sick, in being that man by the pool, that we wouldn't know who we were without it. And some of us have been defined by our struggle for so long that healing would feel like losing ourselves. So the first was the question that Jesus asked. The second is the thing that Jesus didn't do. He doesn't help the man into the pool. He doesn't work with the system or the beliefs that the man had before, or even the excuses that the man had before. He doesn't try to prove his excuses wrong. The pool is irrelevant. The man had been trying to get into the water, but Jesus is the water. And he walked right up to him. The water came to him, you could say. And that's how he got healed. And then the third thing is what happens in the temple. So Jesus finds the man later and says, stop sinning or something worse could happen to you. Now, this is a hard statement, and I'm not trying to say that the man was paralyzed because of sin. It could have, because earlier there was the blind man in John 9, and it wasn't due to sin. So it could be, instead of Jesus saying that the man was paralyzed because of sin, he was saying, stop sinning, because you've been given something very beautiful and very important. And don't waste it, because this is the third sign out of 7 that we'll look at that show that Jesus is the Messiah. What Jesus is saying is that he doesn't want the man to go back to the pool. He doesn't want the man to give up what he was given. I mean, the physical healing was one thing, but the deeper healing, the one that Jesus is always more interested in, is something else. He can heal the body in a moment, but the rest of it takes a life of walking differently. So do you want to get well? I mean, that's not a theological question. It's a real one. Most of us have something we've been carrying for so long that we've built a whole life around it. Grief, a habit, unforgiveness, resentment, jealousy, bitterness. We keep living with a version of ourselves that needs to stay broken for some reason. Because only in our brokenness sometimes do we feel like it makes sense that this is why everything happened to us. And then Jesus walks up, knowing how long it's been, knowing our whole story, and asks us the same question as the man by the pool. Do you want to get well? Not can you get well, not you deserve to get well, not do you deserve to get well. Do you want to? Because if you do, he doesn't need to stir any water. He doesn't need to do anything fancy. He doesn't need you to be first in line. He doesn't need the system to work in your favor. He just needs you to pick up your mat. So may we go this week knowing that no matter what it is, all we got to do is pick up our mat. Grace and peace to you. God bless you. Have a great week.